My mother-in-law kicked me out after a DNA test 30 days later. I came back with the revenge they never saw coming. It always starts with doubt. A small crack in trust. A whispered suspicion that slowly turns into a weapon. In my case, it started with a DNA test. But it ended with me being thrown out of my own life, with nothing but silence behind me. What they didn't know was simple. I didn't leave to disappear. I left to prepare. And 30 days later I came back. Not broken. Not begging. But with something they never expected. Truth with consequences. My name is Natalie Brooks. I am 32 years old and I live in New Jersey, USA. And this is the story of how my mother-in-law destroyed my home with a DNA test, and how I came back to rebuild it on my own terms. It started with suspicion. Always does. My mother-in-law Margaret never liked me fully. Not openly. But I could feel it in the way she watched me. The way she questioned small things. The way she smiled without warmth. But I ignored it. Because I thought love would protect me. I was wrong. After my son was born, everything changed. At first, it was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. My husband was emotional. My baby was healthy. And I believed for a moment that I finally belonged. But Margaret didn't see happiness. She saw doubt. "She doesn't look like our family," she said one day, staring at my newborn. I laughed nervously. "Barbie's change," I replied. But she didn't laugh. She never did. Instead, she started asking questions. Too many questions. About timing. About pregnancy. About details that didn't matter. Until doubt became something louder. Then came the DNA test. I didn't agree. I didn't consent. But I was outnumbered. And in families like this, that's enough. They don't need truth. They just need agreement. When the results came, everything collapsed. Not because of science, but because of interpretation. Margaret read it first. And she decided what it meant. Not the doctors. Not logic. Hers. "He is not fully part of this family," she declared. That sentence was enough. Not for truth, but for destruction. My husband changed after that. Slowly. Quietly. At first he defended me. Then he started questioning me. Then he stopped defending me at all. And that silence hurt more than accusation. One evening, everything exploded. Arguments. Shouting. Accusations flying everywhere. And in the middle of it all, Margaret said something final. "You don't belong here." My husband didn't stop her. Not this time. And that was when I knew. I had already lost. I was kicked out the next morning. No negotiation. No warning. Just silence and a closed door behind me. I left with nothing. Not because I had nothing, but because I refused to fight in a place that had already decided I was guilty. That first night alone was the hardest. Not because I was weak, but because I finally understood something painful. Sometimes you don't lose because you're wrong. You lose because someone else refuses to be right. But I didn't break. I disappeared instead. 30 days. No contact. No explanation. Just silence. And planning. Because I knew something they didn't. Truth doesn't die when you push it away. It waits. And when it returns, it doesn't come back empty. The first week after I was kicked out felt unreal. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just empty. Like my entire life had been removed and replaced with silence. No calls. No messages. No apologies. Just a home that acted like I never existed. But what they didn't understand was simple. Silence is not surrender. It's preparation. I spent the first few days just surviving. Then I started thinking. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because I wasn't going back as the same person who left. That version of me had been accused. That version had been thrown out. That version was gone. By the second week, I started collecting everything. Messages, records, screenshots, anything that showed how the DNA test was handled. Anything that showed how quickly I was labeled guilty without proof. And slowly, the pattern started to appear. It was never about the test. It was about control. By the third week, I had something they never expected. Proof that the DNA test had been influenced. Not medically, but emotionally. Statements twisted. Details ignored. Decisions made before results were even understood. And most importantly, I had evidence that I never actually consented to being removed from my own home. But I didn't rush. Because revenge isn't loud. It's precise. On day 30 I went back. Not crying. Not begging. Not confused. Calm. That was the most dangerous version of me. When I stood in front of the house again, nothing felt familiar. Because I wasn't the same person anymore. And neither was the story. My mother-in-law opened the door. And smiled. That same smile. The one that used to mean control. But this time she didn't know what was coming. You came back, she said. I looked at her calmly. No, I replied. I came to finish this. My husband appeared behind her immediately. His face changed the moment he saw me. Confusion first. Then discomfort. Then something worse. Realization. What are you doing here? He asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step forward aggressively. I just held up my phone. I have something you should both see. The moment I showed the evidence, the room shifted. Not loudly. Not instantly. But slowly. Like gravity changing direction. Messages. Records. Documentation. And contradictions that couldn't be ignored. My mother-in-law's expression changed. Not anger. Fear. Because for the first time, she wasn't controlling the narrative anymore. She was inside it. This is manipulation, she said quickly. But her voice wasn't stable. It was defensive. Fragile. Because she knew the difference now. Truth doesn't need volume. Only clarity. My husband looked at everything silently. Longer than before. This time he wasn't reacting emotionally. He was seeing patterns. And patterns don't lie. You pushed me out of my own home, I said quietly. Based on suspicion. No one responded. Because there was no defense for that. The silence stretched. And in that silence something shifted permanently. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Awareness. My husband finally spoke. I didn't understand what was happening. I nodded slightly. That's the problem, I said. You didn't need understanding, you needed questions. My mother-in-law tried one last time. I was protecting this family. I looked at her directly. No, I said. You were controlling it. And this time she didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to say. What followed wasn't dramatic revenge. No screaming. No chaos. Just consequences. Legal conversations. Family boundaries being rewritten. Authority shifting where it should have been from the beginning. I didn't destroy them. I simply removed their ability to destroy me. And that was enough. Days later, the house didn't feel like theirs anymore. Not because I took anything away, but because truth had entered it. And once truth enters a place built on doubt, nothing stays the same. My husband changed slowly after that. Not instantly loyal, not instantly perfect, but aware. And awareness is where accountability begins. My mother-in-law became quieter, not defeated, but careful, because she finally understood something she had ignored for too long. Control only works until truth shows up. One evening, as I prepared to leave again, she finally spoke softly. I didn't think it would go this far. I looked at her calmly. That's always the excuse, I said. Until it does. And I walked away. Not because I lost. Not because I won. But because I no longer needed to stay in a place where my existence had to be proven.